Dear Yoruba Muslims, this content is created specifically for you all, as today is another Friday. I've come to do a kind and warm reminder. As you will be making your way to one masjid, mashalashi mosque or the other, I'd like to implore you to desist from transposing Allah for Olorun. That's Olorun. Olorun and Allah are not the same entity. You're better off using that Yorubanized version of Allah that you all sometimes use, Allahu. That's the appropriate term to use. It's a bit disingenuous and outright dishonest to want to transpose Olorun with Allah. It's become imperative to begin to do this, to begin to highlight these differences, seen as radical Islam has crept into Yoruba land while we all slept. Radical Islam is here. It, however, hasn't taken root, so we still have the room and the opportunity to check it. We all know how societies that embrace radical Islam end. It never ends well. Once a fragment of a society embrace radical Islam, it never ends well. The history books are there to tell us how these things always pan out. It's not too late for us to checkmate radical Islam. The emphasis is on radical Islam. Do not misquote me. How do I know radical Islam is here? You just need to pay attention. It's everywhere on social media. We're beginning to hear Yoruba Muslims say to their Yoruba non-Muslim brothers and sisters that Islam comes before anything else. Islam comes before their ethnicity. Islam precedes their Yoruba. We also have begun to hear them delineate themselves from Yoruba culture. Now, I said earlier that it's disingenuous and dishonest to want to use the descriptive name Olorun, while we all know that Muslims abhor Ifa. The descriptive name Olorun comes from the Ifa corpus. So you all abhor Ifa. Ifa is abhorrent to all of you. Your imams constantly deride Ifa openly. Your imams constantly talk down on Ifa and Onishashi. Nobody even ever bothers to push back on that. Alright? It's only, I think, maybe in the last 1 year that from what I've seen online, that some certain individuals are beginning to push back on this, the reason that religious people tend to subject Ifa to and Ifa practitioners, Onishashi, like myself. There is no correlation between Allah and Olorun. There is none. There are parallel lines. Like I just stated, Olorun is from the Ifa corpus. Alright? So you just can't pick that name, want to use it, while you deride the entire Ifa compendium. It doesn't make sense. So you're better off staying away from it. Just stick to Islamic doctrines, stick to your Islamic teachings. Nobody's querying. We can't query you for that, but you can. That transposition has to stop. That syncretism has to stop because it's disingenuous. You cannot equate or transpose Allah to be Olodumare or Olorun. Why? Because Olodumare, from what Ifa teaches us, Olodumare is a transcendental entity, meaning we know very little about Olodumare. The Oshas are however immanent. The Oshas we relate with. It's the Oshas we venerate. You can never find an Ojubo Olorun. We don't do that. Allah, however, is an anthropomorphic entity, meaning those who adhere to Islamic teachings relate with Allah like you relate with your friends, because they know Allah. Allah is anthropomorphic. Allah is personal. Olorun is impartial and is transcendental, like I said. Olodumare is transcendental. There are no like the Ojubo Ishua, all the Oshas, no one Ojubo. There is no Ojubo. That's portal. A point. That's what that means. Ojubo is a point. We don't have any dedicated to Olodumare Agotun. And then again, Shaitan, who happens to be a doer of evil according to Islamic teachings, does not exist in Ishashe. There's no verse for the name Shaitan or Satan is non-existent in Ishashe. Ishu is not Satan, which is why Olorun is not Allah. Ishu is not Satan. Olorun is not Allah. They're separate entities. The concepts are different. The teachings are different. Islam is 1,400 years old. Ifa has been here right from the dawn of the moment when man became a thinking entity. Man wasn't different from the lower animals. The minute man separated from lower animals and became a superior animal was the moment man started to think. It is our critical thinking ability that distinguishes us from lower animals. And right from that moment on was wisdom teachings, of which Ifa is one, was bequeathed to humanity to guide us, to serve as an evolutionary manual, to serve as guidance for man's evolution. That's the point of wisdom teachings like Ifa. Alright? So how can you say they're the same thing? How can you now want to, like I said, you just can't pick one thing while rubbishing the rest of the compendium and sit comfortably with calling Allah alone. You can't do that. So I'm actually appealing, Kokin Sheja, it's an appeal that you all need to retrain yourselves and stop it. Stop it. It's disingenuous, especially as you all deride us and insult us and call us name. Now, my concern about radical Islam in Yoruba land is something I believe every Omokudrujiri should take seriously. We all should be concerned. We were once conquered, you know. We managed to stay afloat. If we allow them, they've crept in, like I said. If we allow radical Islam take root in Yoruba society, I'm not in a position to know how things will pan out. So this is just me drumming this caution into us that we need to wake up, know what we're doing. And one of the ways to do it is to stand in our truth. Let people know what we represent, what our wisdom teaching is about, and how it is distinct from every other religion that was introduced, which are foreign. The syncretism has to stop. That's the first, that's where we start. That's the start point. Push back on syncretism. Allah is not Olorun. Issue is not Satan. The concept of heaven and hell as it exists in Islam is non-existent in Ishashe. Now, I know for I can go on Twitter right now and pull out 1,000 Muslim handles who I know for a fact would harm a non-Muslim Yoruba person. If things go south today, they would easy, without thought, harm their non-Muslim Yoruba brother or sister. We all heard when that young musician died. We all heard that Imam say out in public that Yoruba Muslims should not mourn that boy or be concerned about the circumstances of his death because he's not a Muslim. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's intolerant. And we know what intolerance, religious intolerance, even any kind of intolerance, we know what it breeds in any society. It never ends well. It never ends well. That's sowing the seed of discord, the seed of hate between brothers. Unfortunately, that's all religion ever does. Build barriers between brothers. Now, to end this, I want to draw attention to something that's quite salient. Muslims, generally, not just Yoruba Muslims, believe that Muhammad conquered the polytheists in Arabia because those people were evil. Now, is it smart? That's the question. How smart is it for you've read something in a book, all right? The discussion is not about the validity or the veracity of the book. This book was introduced to your society, all right? Let's even say it was introduced at a time when you could not check fact it. But now we can do that. And if you go back and look at the Arabian society in prehistoric times, in ancient times, long before now, these societies were barbaric. They were barbaric. At the time when it was the norm, you know, it still happens, but let's just restrict this to ancient times. At the time when in Yoruba society, resolve issues. When there are issues, we call ourselves like brothers and talk to ourselves. We speak the truth. Adafa to resolve issues that are a bit naughty, you know, issues that are complex or difficult. Adafasi. But then, besides divination, Ifa is a wisdom teaching tradition. It's like it's an evolutionary manual, like I said. It's a book of guidance. So in Yoruba society, we had mechanisms of how we resolve issues. But that was not the case in Arabia. Beheading was the norm. Beheading was the norm. Stoning people was the norm. Child marriages were normal. None of these things existed in Yoruba society. Beheading, stoning, raping people, enslaving people. We had the warfare system, which is not a system of slavery. It's not a system of slavery. It's apprenticeship. All right? A society where beheading, stoning, child marriage, bestiality was normal in Arabia. How can you then think that such a society can introduce a system to you and that thing they introduce to you is superior to what your ancestors had? A society where reasoning and logic was the basis by which that society was arranged. Where's the comparison? Where's the basis of comparison? Arabia was barbaric. We were civilized. The Yoruba society has always been civil. You just need to go and, I'm Yoruba and I'm an African, and anything an African says is not valuable, is not important until we hear things from foreigners, preferably Europeans, white-skinned people, all right, or pale-skinned people, because nobody is white and nobody is black. You just go and check the records of Europeans themselves, the things they wrote down about Yoruba people. There's a particular when, I don't remember the author, where the man said that Yoruba people know about cosmology, but where it fell short was he now assumed that it must have come in, it was making reference to Ifa, but he ignorantly assumed that it must have been introduced, that Ifa was introduced either through Christianity or Islam or something like that. I think he said it couldn't be Islam because the Mohammedans are barbaric, something of that nature. I don't quite remember. I don't remember the title of the book as well. When I upload this content, I'll look it up and I'll put the title of the book in the description box. Europeans themselves acknowledge the fact that the Yoruba society was civilized. We were civil, though they still call us savages, which is, of course, an insult. We're not savages. We don't kill people. It's only slavery is a component of Islam. Muslims are allowed in ancient times, they still do, to rape. Well, not rape. Don't let me use the word rape. Muslims are allowed to have sexual intercourse with women whom they raped and possessed. That's women who were prisoners of war, women caught in the course of wars, women who are captives. It's okay to have sexual relations with them. All right? So, bestiality was also the norm in those regions of the world. Bestiality was the norm. Okay? Even homosexuality was the norm in those societies. You just need to dig into the historical record. You will find them there. Rumi, who is a well-known poet, he has a particular poem where he was advising that when a woman in those regions, that she was better off, either, all of these things I'll put in the description box, all right? The key thing I want you to pick from what I'm saying now is, how can such a society who has such barbaric culture be superior to what we had? What we had and we still have, which is Ifa, is superior. It's superior to anything that was introduced to us. That's the fact. If Ifa is as useless as religious Yoruba people claim, nobody will be studying it in prestigious universities around the world. Nobody will be taking a look at it. These systems that you all put on your head were foisted on your ancestors. That alone should get you to sit down and think about it. You can no longer continue to sit in willful ignorance, because all of the tools you need to dig into the root of everything you've been fed and conditioned with is at your disposal. Why aren't you doing it? Or why don't you want to do it? Mental slavery? That's what I think it is. Even though physical slavery has ended, the mind of the average African is still shackled. But let me close once again with my appeal to Yoruba Muslims. Please desist from transposing Olorun with Allah. The much better and preferable word to use would be allow. I know it's going to be tough for you to train yourself, but it's doable. So please do it. Thank you.